Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I am talking to Phylicia Currence, and we are talking about a topic that is very, very important for a lot of people now because it's going to be very different than ever before, and that is going to college. So, welcome to the show, Phylicia. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. Now, before we get into talking about, your business of College by Her, what was your background before starting this business?
So, growing up, I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I came from a family where like divorce and kind of just a lot of stuff was going on in the household. And so I kind of always wished I had a therapist or someone to talk to. And then once I got into high school, I actually took AP psychology, which really piqued my interest. And I thought it was fascinating how a person's experiences and just kind of all these things that they went through in life kind of shaped and really impacted the way they behaved and how they moved forward. And so I kind of got really interested in psychology and therapy. And so from, I would say, yeah, high school, I kind of had this feeling in knowing that mental health and therapy and psychology is something that I was really interested in. So that's kind of how all of that came to be before I even started my organization.
Gotcha. Now, take us through, getting to that point of starting the organization. Kind of, what was the thought? Like, what was it that made you feel like this was the thing that I need to put my energy into?
Yeah, so I have an older sister. She's 7 years older than me. So, by the time it's time for me to go to college, I'm 18. She's, 25. So she's kind of showing me the ropes, telling me the do's and the don'ts, helping me make that transition. And so I have a group of friends who are a year under me. We all dance together. So I grew up at a dance studio, and we danced together since we were 2 years old. And so as I'm in my freshman year of college, I have my friends who are in their senior year of high school. And one of them in particular, who's the only child, kind of came up to me and was like, it's so great that you had your older sister to help you, like, kind of with that transition. But like, I don't have an older sister. So like, who's going to kind of help me? So I will definitely say that one conversation definitely sparked everything that College by Her has become. And so after that conversation, I was like, okay, well, me and my friends who, were by no means experts, we had just finished only a year of college, but I'm like, me and my friends, we'll get together and tell you and your friends about what college is about. And so that's literally how it started, very informal. I think we all got together on like at a college campus, rented out a room, had food, like her and her friends came, me and my friends came, kind of did it panel style. They asked us questions and we really just kind of talked to them very candidly about what college was, and all of our experiences, our obstacles and things like that. And so after that event, kind of her and all of her friends were like, this was great, like you need to do this every year for girls entering into college. And so that's kind of how College by Her happened.
Awesome. So now, with doing those type of events, and just when you think about your own experience, were there any misconceptions about college that really stood out, or that people have questions about?
Um, so yeah, so I will say it's interesting. So me and my sister talk about this a lot that now when someone's going into college, and you might be able to relate to this too, like now a person has so much they see, right? So like Snapchat, Instagram, like you could be a senior in high school and be watching people's college experiences and like know homecoming and know all of those things. Where even if you go back to 10 years ago, so not even far back, when Instagram and Snapchat and these things were as popular, you didn't really know you didn't know what college was like until you were there, and you kind of just really had TV shows, whether fictional, so stuff like Different World, or even if you want to look at like reality shows like College Hill or whatever. But so I think that's been something that's been really interesting, is that now maybe high schoolers feel like they kind of know like a lot about college because you're able to see, oh, such and such at homecoming, and this is what their Instagram live was and their Snapchats. And so I think that way, of course, people on social media, only post the highlight reel. So I think
Yeah.
those are some misconceptions that I've seen working with high school students now and students going into college is that, you know, they see the glamour and the fun parts of it. And of course, college is fun. But those same people aren't going to put on their Instagram story when they got a 47 on a test because they was out, you know, at a party. So I think those are definitely some kind of misconceptions that I've seen a lot.
Yeah, and I think that there can be quite a few. Because I mean, I think about even my own college experience. I mean, I was a first generation college student, and when I went into college, I really didn't have much of a pattern or a model. Um, so it's like a lot of stuff I figured out. And at the time, like I said, there wasn't, Snapchat wasn't a big thing. Facebook wasn't like, a thing before I went. I think at the time when I went to college, MySpace was there, but like nobody was using MySpace to really talk about their college experience. So all you had was television, and so now when you think about that, where like you said, people get the glamorized view of it because that's what people are going to put on their social media. Like, what are some of the challenges that you see, students going through when they go into their first year that they may not have been prepared for?
I think something that, and I know there's even research about this as well, but definitely mental health challenges. So for a lot of different diagnoses, kind of the period of, some people refer to it as adolescence, some people say young adulthood, but like that period of 18 to 23, and even really to 25 is the time frame where kind of researchers and psychologists talk about that being a lot of people's first experience with mental health. So whether that is anxiety, depression, or even maybe on like the other side of the spectrum, you have things like bipolar or other diagnoses where a person might experience their first break when they're in college. And so I think mental health in general is kind of something that seems to be a first time experience when people go into college. You have you're transitioning, you have this new independence, and then you have these new stressors that you maybe never had before, or even if you had before, you had mom or dad or a parent or someone right there to kind of really walk you through them. And so this kind of now looks different for you being in this space. And so I would definitely say managing those stress and like mental health in general is something that I see a lot of.
Gotcha. And I can see that a lot because one of the things that I often notice, even when I was in college and even now, just where it's like that first year is probably where a lot of people tend to, as soon as the weekend hits, they pack up and they head home for the weekend. And one of the things that I find interesting is that, a lot of times like they're going back looking for a familiar environment, but when they get home, they realize things have changed. So are you seeing that people, struggle with making that transition to, hey, this is your new world? Like the old way they used to do things, or when you go back home, it may not be exactly the same. Do you find that people struggle with that?
Definitely. And funny enough, so College by Her has a podcast, little plug. But on the podcast episode this week, I was talking about this very thing. So talking about change and how, we see this come up in a variety of ways. So I know the one that a lot of people know about is like when it's holiday time, right? And you go home and, you've been at college for a semester, you're used to coming and going on your own time, doing whatever you want. And then you go home for the holidays back to your parents' house and it's like, be home by 2. And you're looking like, what? Like I was out till 4 o'clock in the morning last week. And so that's kind of one of those things when it comes to, balancing these literally two worlds that you're living in. And I think it's just a really big part of that transition of being a teenager and being a adolescent into that young adulthood, and all of those things that come up. And, family is a big part of that. So how are you perceived? Like, does your family look at you as a young adult and kind of being this responsible person? Or are you still seen as a child, and what that looks like? The same way as friendships. So a lot of times maybe you go off to college, you can come back home and there's kind of the stereotypical, maybe friends think, oh, you changed, or you're not the same, or you think you're better than us now. And so I just think in general, whether it's patterns, behaviors, family relationships, friendships, there's so much transition that goes on for a person as they are in college. And it really is kind of this juggling act between, maybe this person that you used to be and these things that you used to do into maybe you're changing and you're kind of experiencing and learning more about yourself and what that looks like.
Gotcha. Now, what's the name of the podcast and what's the general topic of the podcast? I definitely want the audience to hear about that.
Yeah. So, pretty simple. It's College by Her, the podcast. And so it's on all, wherever you find podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all of that. And so the podcast is what I like to say, like a mix between pop culture, mental health, and college. So really anything in those kind of realms. I love Beyonce, so anything from Beyonce to anxiety to what's currently going on, we kind of talk about it all. But a lot of the topics, of course, do have to deal with things that a typical college student would experience. So whether that's roommate problems, time management, depression, anxiety, family relationships, the holidays, exams, kind of all of that stuff.
Gotcha. Awesome. Now, because most of the audience for the show is primarily entrepreneurs and business leaders, I want to focus a little bit more on actually running the organization. Like, what has that experience been like? It is going from, hey, I had an idea, this is something very helpful, but now it's building a business around it. So what has that journey been like?
So it's been a journey, I will say. So right now I'm a licensed social worker. And so a big part of me kind of building my business, and continuing to build it has been me personally kind of achieving certain goals. So like, for example, right now I'm on the path. Next year I'll be clinically licensed, which in social work is kind of the highest rank, meaning that I will be able to work independently as a therapist, so like have my own private practice. And so that's kind of one of the goals of what College by Her will be in the future, is a private practice. So I think a big part of me like kind of growing my business right now has been like working on these things professionally for myself so that I can be like kind of certified and credentialed to do the things that I want to do in a few years. But as far as running it right now, it's a one-woman show. So it's quite the adventure as far as the day-to-day and everything that goes into it. I will say I have amazing friends and Black-owned businesses that I work with as far as like marketing and like creating my logo. So I had one of my friends who has his own business who did that. My cousin has a clothing line, so like he does all of my merchandise. So I think for me, something that I've really enjoyed about the entire process has been kind of like the ecosystem of it all. So being able to work with people that I know and love to like help different visions of it come to life.
Awesome. And I think that that's a very, I guess you say, big thing of developing those right partnerships, because you can't do it all by yourself, especially as you're looking to grow it. Now, how do you find the experience of, of connecting with potential clients for the business? Because I saw something on Instagram where you did I believe it was a seminar series that you were doing. Like, how do you find, developing kind of those approaches to really reach out and connect with, the prospective clients for your business?
So I think for me, everything has happened rather organically. So like I said, I'm born and raised in Charlotte, and I danced at a dance studio my entire life. So when I was 2 to 18, I taught there all 4 years of high school. So I was like teaching dance to 3-year-olds. And so kind of a full circle moment, because a lot of those 3-year-olds now are like in high school. And so those are the kids that I'm working with. So I think for me, a lot of it has been around like community and kind of just people that I already knew. And then as far as like, partnering with other like therapists or kind of some of the things that I've been working on now, those have also been organic, but also been kind of through ways that I've put myself out there. So, how for entrepreneurs, there might be different groups or networking events. So I'm a part of a organization that is for Black women entrepreneurs, like kind of faith-based. And so that's like a group that I really love. And so one of the girls who I did an Instagram live series with, we met in that community. And so I think also just being around like-minded people who are like also kind of building their business, have similar kind of values and different things like that has been really helpful in opening doors. And, of course, everything is about who you know. And so even if it's one of them in that community saying like, oh, hey, I know this girl who like is looking for someone, like, and like having connections work that way as well.
Gotcha. So now when a potential client is looking at College by Her, what are the types of products and services that they can look to get from your business?
Great question. So College by Her, I guess just to talk a little bit more too about the audience, was created and like is designed for Black girls transitioning from high school into college and then kind of throughout their college experience. So as far as physical products go, College by Her website does have like a merchandise store. And so we do have like College by Her t-shirts. Those are currently sold out. But like a lot of different things like tank tops. We had some gratitude journals. And right now, one of the things we have on there is a mental health guide, which is a book that I wrote that is a 12-month mental health guide for college students. And each month is a different topic. So think of things, social and emotional topics. So think of things like resilience, depression, anxiety, boundaries, those type of things. And each month has like journaling prompts. There's like a letter from me, kind of all of those things. And so that's what I would say is probably by far one of my favorite products. And then as far as services, and just the other things that College by Her has going on. So we are constantly kind of giving out resources to college students because that's something that I'm, really passionate about. And then of course, things that are related to your mental and emotional health while you're in college. So we have like an email list where we're constantly giving out free resources as well as the podcast, which of course is free. And then something that will be launching officially in September is a online community there will be like a College by Her community. And so I'm really excited about that. And that will be like more of a subscription service. So that will cost, but it will come with you being a part of this community. So with other Black girls who are also in college. And it's funny how this came up because this was an idea that I always had to do. But as things always happen, everything happens in perfect timing. And so this March or April, I was having like girls kind of at different times say to me like, how can we stay connected to one another, this semester if we're not physically going to be on a college campus? Like, how can I feel like I'm still making friends or, even feel like I'm still in college if I'm at home on the computer? And so that's when it just kind of really made sense for me to go through and figure out how to do this community. So I'm really excited about that. Like I said, that will be officially launching in September. So.
Awesome. Now, where can they find you online and find you on social media?
So everything is College by Her. So the website is collegebyher.com. And on there is, like I said, all the merchandise. You can find the podcasts and things on there, learn more about, just what College by Her is. All of that is there, and sign up for the newsletter. That's all on the website. And then Instagram is at College by Her as well. And then all the information about the community will also be on the website too.
Awesome. So before we wrap up, one question that I like to ask every guest that comes on is when you think about, your experience as an entrepreneur of really building out this business and building a business around the idea, what are two pieces of wisdom or lessons that you've kind of learned, or maybe things that you're currently learning that you think other entrepreneurs should definitely grasp these lessons?
I love this question. So one that I will say is to know yourself, and this is something that I'm of course still learning, but to know yourself in the sense of, for example, if you have an idea, knowing the difference between I want to run this, like bounce this off of someone and kind of get feedback and build on it and grow, versus I'm asking this person for permission, and if they say they don't like it, I'm not going to do it. I
Wow.
think that's something big that I have learned recently. And like I said, kind of learning myself of like, okay, going into this conversation, what purpose is this serving me? Am I looking for someone to give me permission, or do I really want to share this idea with someone? And I think that's a really big thing, because you can have all of these ideas and then not end up doing them or end up changing them. And next thing you know, they're not your idea and it's your business. This is what you want to do. And so I think that's something that's been really big for me. In addition to not want to kind of what's the saying, having too many cooks in the kitchen. So like if you have this idea and you're like, okay, I want to tell like 10 of my friends about it and get feedback, okay, great. But then when you have 10 different pieces of feedback, now you're like, okay, well, this person said I should do this, and then but this person said it didn't like that part of it, and then like now you're stressed and you're confused. So I think that has been a really big lesson for me. And then secondly, I would definitely say, and I know this is so cliche, but I would say trust the process. I think something that a lot of my friends laugh at me about, but I mean this wholeheartedly, is that anytime, you think about like, oh dang, like I only have 2 people who wanted to do this or 3 people who bought this, something that I always tell them is I think about, like I said, Beyonce is my best friend. She posted me on her Instagram story, by the way, when she did the Before I Let Go dance. But anyway, I always think about Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion, right? So I don't know if you saw this picture, but when Megan Thee Stallion like first started taking off, they were, kind of posting pictures on Twitter and stuff of her journey. And there was a time, I think she was performing at like a homecoming concert or something. And she's performing like rapping for her life, and it's 3 people standing there. Like whole grass is empty and it's 3 people at the front. They're hyping her up and she's going. And I guess the way that I always look at situations is like, imagine if Megan Thee Stallion would have walked off stage after that and been like, I'm done, only 3 people. Like, we wouldn't know her as Megan Thee Stallion now. The same thing with Beyonce. She left Destiny's Child, had executives telling her, you don't have a #1 single on this entire album. Like, that was the Crazy in Love album. And so that's kind of the way I think of it, is like all of these greats and all these people that we look up to, they all started where we are. And so to kind of be in this place and be like, oh, like this didn't work, so it looks like I'm gonna hang it up, is, I don't know, to me is whack. And so, this is what I have to tell myself of like, quitting won't get you to your goal any faster. So literally keep going. And so I think for me, that would be like the second biggest lesson that I have.
Awesome. Well, Phylicia, thank you so much for coming on the show, for telling us about, your journey, your business, the services that you offer with College by Her, and sharing the wisdom and the insight that not only you're learning, but that others can learn and grasp so they can be successful in what they're doing. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.